Okay, so today we're going to be discussing communication, and I'm going to let you know why communication is key. So communication, as we all know, is to translate messages and transfer them to another person or ourselves. So the purpose of communication can be to persuade a coworker to go with you to the gym on Sundays, to inform your community of the benefits of health, to psych yourself up for a meeting that you have or for an upcoming game. So there can be multiple purposes for communication, and it's just important to have healthy communication styles. So, two types of communication. Can anyone tell me what they think the two types of communication are?
Verbal and nonverbal.
That's important, but that's not the two types of communication. But you guys are all on. There we go. So we have intrapersonal and interpersonal. Intrapersonal is basically self-talk. It's the communication we're having with ourselves, the conversations we're having in the mirror when we're psyching ourselves up, or when we don't meet a goal, are we beating ourselves up? That's our own personal communication. Interpersonal communication is when you have at least two people translating messages to each other. So that's where the nonverbal and the verbal messages come in. So those are the two pieces of interpersonal communication. So verbal, obviously, it's, speaking to one another. The verbal text or the emails, it's the words. Nonverbal communication, your gestures. If I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to talk to you about communication. Is your posture welcoming? Are my hands behind my back? Those are things that people look for when you're communicating with them. Your tone, are you low? Can people hear you? Are you loud? Are you projecting your voice? Your gestures, if someone's talking to you, are you making eye contact with them so they feel like you are engaged, or are you looking in your phone? Am I looking at this TV? Am I looking down? So those are things that helps have healthy communication. Also, some main points of communication I wanted to tell you all was the 6 C's. You want to be clear. Make sure your message is received. Make sure your message is concise. When I say concise, be direct. Let people know exactly what you're saying. Don't beat around the bush. Be courteous. Be kind with your words. If you're receiving a message, you don't want someone to be super aggressive or passive as well. So just make sure you're courteous. If you're giving a message, be correct. Make sure the information that you have is factual. Be complete. Don't give someone half of a message and not tell them the whole story, because then that leaves them to interpret things in their own way. And then be constructive. Again, when you're on the receiving end, it's easier to take like rough criticism or things that are your weakness or not your strength. It's kind of hard sometimes, so just make sure you're constructive with your words. Also, we're talking about how we speak and how we give off messages, but listening is very important when we're talking about communication. Are you being an active listener? Are you nodding your head? Are you looking at me? Are you engaging? Are you close to someone, making eye contact? Are you aware of the situation? Make sure you're listening to understand, reflect, and not just to respond. Then also we have conflict and confrontation, which is inevitable when we communicate, right? It's gonna happen whether we're with our coworkers, conflict within ourselves, conflict with our team members, if we join an intramural team, or just like a team in general, or when you have your workout partners, right? So whether it's personal, professional, or athletic, it's gonna happen. When you have conflict, make sure you address it up front, right? You don't wanna let things fester. You wanna get it out in the open and just be clear and courteous when you do it. Also, team building. It's easier when you have a rapport with a person when you tell them what's going on, especially when you have to have a tough conversation. So it's easier to handle hard messages when you know the person. Would you guys agree? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and then also mediators. Even though sometimes it's not about a team, or even at work, those are still considered, your coworkers are still considered teammates, right? So having a third party come in and just give an objective view, a neutral party, even though we're adults, it's okay to have help, because sometimes people just clash and we just need that fresh perspective, right? And then confrontations. when we are doing physical activity, as you know, sports can be very, very high energy, can be super heated. So sometimes you do not have to address it head on. You can wait, take it, mull on it, think about it, then go ahead and communicate your thoughts in a clear, super emotional way, right? And then also check yourself. Sometimes we don't think, how is what I'm going to communicate better the situation? Is it just for me, like, oh, I'm in my feelings, you did this, or are you really trying to do something that's positive, right? And improving overall just communication between the team. You want to have multi-sensory modes, and what I mean by that is you want to engage all of your senses. So I have a handout that I'll be giving you for some people who don't do well with just listening to someone all the time. Also, I would show you a video, so that would engage a different sense, but I don't want to give up the answer to the activity we're going to do. But just finding different ways to keep people engaged. Some people are learned in different ways, right? And then you want to have redundancy. The way that people learn and retain information is just by repeating it. We're adults, but sometimes we need a reminder, so that's okay. And then the why. Don't feel attacked when people ask why when you're telling them something. And sometimes that builds trust and transparency. So if you can actually explain to them why you're telling them something, it kind of breaks that wall down, and then people won't be so defensive. So these are my tips, and thank you for listening, and I hope that we can have a great activity. All right. Everyone, so the name of this game is Flip Flop, and so the goal of this game is just to help you increase your communication and obviously your teamwork. So for safety reasons, we are on a concrete ground. Just be careful. For this, you are going to have to move around, but I don't want anyone jumping recklessly, and then also no getting on each other's shoulders. If you think you're strong enough to get on each other's backs, maybe, if that, but you might not need to. I just want you to be safe and be careful because it is a concrete ground. And then also, the objective is for everyone to stand on the tarp and flip the tarp over without you touching the ground. If you touch the ground, then you have to start over. All right? So we're gonna start. Any questions?
But we can touch the tarp with our hands, right?
You can touch the tarp with your hands. Yep. You just can't touch the ground. Yes.
What are the other squares for the other? You said there were ripped up squares too?
Look, these are the small ones.
Okay.
Are we on a time limit?
So we're gonna go and see how long. I might give you 10 minutes and then just gauge how it's taking you. But right now, don't worry about the time. I want you to worry about like just getting the flip-flop done. All right?
I want the transition to be on tape.
We can use our hands.
All right. You can use your hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do I start healing?
I feel like we should fold it.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's
This
do
way, maybe?
I feel like if we float around here,
And then if you like
step around, hook
you know,
around,
and then
Go over?
Yeah, and then get it and start to like peel it out.
Diagonal?
yes.
Okay. And so then we have to. What if we start rolling it that way and then jumping forward so that we can have enough to release the bottom?
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Oh,
Nicole's group
I stepped on the foot. I stepped on the thing.
has to start over.
Sorry, I was on the edge.
Well, now we know.
Okay, see?
Now we know.
Yep.
This is the back side.
Lift one foot up.
Okay, let's do this. Okay. Y'all ready?
Over this way.
Yeah, stand there. Now lift this here. There you go. Now you can.
One, two, three.
We got it.
1, 2, 3.
We flipped it.
All right. Hey. So it seems like you guys figured it out. Mariana's group figured it out just a little bit before you all, but okay. But you guys seem to figure it out in different ways. Tell me, how did you feel about this?
I thought it was gonna be harder.
Okay. You thought it was gonna be harder,
Yeah.
and
It's good. We like came up with a quick plan.
Yeah.
And then just like executed that.
We all
Okay.
thought that the best idea was to be on one side and then just try to move it. Yeah.
okay. So what I'm gonna do before we ask any more questions is everyone, now that you've done it together or separately, I'd like you all to get on this one and see if you guys can accomplish it together.
Okay.
Okay.
So combine both teams.
Okay.
I think what we did worked pretty well.
I like your
It seemed a little bit harder.
Yeah.
What did y'all do?
So what we did is, so we, of course, because there was only 3 of us in the four corners, we saw the open corner and pulled it towards us, and then stepped onto the back side of it, and then pulled the corner that we were kind of standing on
I think it
to
can still
turn
work
over.
that way.
I think so too.
It's gonna be hard to jump.
This one.
Okay. Wait.
Oh wait, so
I
we
think
all
that we
stand
should-
over here.
Yeah.
But we gotta fold it over sooner.
Yeah.
That's sooner though, because we have to get more
So if
people.
we start twisting it out.
No.
Now somebody
Yeah.
steps on this side.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
Watch
Alright,
your
so
foot.
start, I'll release this side then. Then we're gonna get a little tight over here.
You're good. Okay. So one at a time.
There you go. Okay, so one person in that corner there.
Here, let me spread it out a little bit.
Don't
No, I wouldn't lift that. Because we can pull it from
Yeah,
the other
if I
side.
squeeze.
Okay.
And then
Someone
step
needs
on
to
that
come.
one. Step on that one.
Do you mean?
Yeah. And then, and if you could move closer to the.
I'm gonna
closer-
grab your
wait,
shoulders if that's okay.
Wait, don't not yet. Wait, stop. Move closer to the edge, and if Garmet can get on and I can get on, I can turn this corner and flip it over.
How about like that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're doing.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Hold on. One foot.
Watch your foot.
You might even lift one foot.
Okay. Now this is folded over on this side, so you guys can come back this way, and I can straighten it out.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah. We did it. Here we go. Now just straighten that side out, and we're on it.
Okay, awesome.
Woo!
Congrats, guys.
Yay!
All right.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes, so that seems like it took a little bit more, but you guys figured it out. So, how did you feel about that?
Good, because we went the efficient route. We were like, okay, what was the easiest transition? We kind of did some trial and error, like, okay,
Okay.
like one option looked a little bit harder, so we're like, maybe let's just try what
Okay.
worked for us.
How did you guys feel that time when Nicole's foot hit the ground?
Oh, the first time?
Yes.
A little disappointing.
Okay.
I was like,
Yeah, because we had it figured out.
Yeah,
We were
I was
good.
excited for that to like just.
What do you think were some things that were effective?
Trusting each other.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
when I
trust
like
was a
stepped
big
over here
role.
at that point, I didn't know what was going on behind me. So I
Okay.
was just like, y'all got it.
Right.
I'll just stand here.
Okay.
I had to ask for support at one time. I had to. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like getting a little close. I was like, can I hold on to your just back really quick?
Okay. So I'm hearing that trust, support were things that worked very well for the group.
I think that we communicated really well. I don't think there was a lot of like arguing back and forth where it could be in a group activity like this.
Okay.
So I think that was
That worked.
helpful that we were able to just communicate clearly and concisely like, hey, this is what we did, let's like kind of do this. And of course, modify it for more people, but it was basically the same.
Okay. Does everybody feel like people had a role and they played it like, or did some people feel like they took a back seat?
I mean, I feel like maybe I took a back seat, but that was a good role to be in.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that this It ain't required a lot of
required.
people
Okay.
to have a role.
And that's how it is in teams. Sometimes everybody has a different role, and that's what's important, that people can play that role and communicate that and just respect everyone. So thanks for supporting me, guys.
Thank you.
And congrats, you guys did it twice. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, cool.
There you go.
Here we go.